Narayan, it's so great to have you in the studio for this podcast. And I will say this, my first and ongoing and recurring introduction to Ultraviolet has been driving by the inner Koramangala inner ring road from where I stay to Indiranagar, and the Ultraviolet office comes on the left. And I used to keep wondering, man, look at these really cool bikes hanging from cables in this double ceilinged kind of office. And I wonder what kind of bikes these are. Coincidentally, you started Ultraviolet the same year that the Ken also started. It's fascinating that we've both been in Bangalore. We've both
similar part of town.
Exactly, right? Indiranagar. And we've been in Indiranagar for most of that time as well. And yet here we're meeting in the 9th year of our respective journeys. But hey, I'm thrilled to have you here.
Likewise. And if anything, that just tells us how quickly time goes, right? When you're chasing larger goals.
I'm going to switch to away from Ultraviolet, the brand, the product, etc., to building Ultraviolet and you as a entrepreneur and founder. I'll start with career, right? What would be your advice to people when it comes to finding a career that they're passionate about and interested in?
I would say stay open-minded till you're sort of close to your 20s. And maybe the culture one more interesting thing. When I was in Sweden, my class was about 8 people, right? It was me from India, China, Japan, Brazil, Sweden, Norway, Germany. This was my mix. My biggest learning was cultural learnings from my classmates. It wasn't becoming a better designer. That the more effort you put in, you become. But it was the inputs on how different cultures think, on what priorities they put forth, how what matters to them. And this played a big role in what you're saying in terms of how do you decide what you want to do. What I noticed was a lot of these folks, after their primary education, say till about your 12th grade or 12th standard, are okay to take a year off, not just to have fun or go on holidays. Nobody is coming from a luxurious background to be able to afford to do that. But I noticed quite a few of my classmates and even people in Europe and certain other parts took a year to do 2-3 different internships. And if you think about it, at that level, an internship is a learning, absorbing opportunity for you to understand what a tech industry is, what a finance industry may be, what a startup world may be like.
That's fantastic advice. And the concept of a gap year
Yes.
to discover what you're interested in
Yes.
or what you could do is actually, it exists in
Yes.
the US and the West, but not so much in India. In
Yes.
India, it used to be till recently looked down upon.
Exactly.
If you have a gap year or if you have a gap in your resume.
And companies don't hire you, right? If you have a gap in the...
That's correct.
But I think we have to think about it like a year lost, but you've gained for the next 30 years. You've gained...
This goes back to my earlier observation about when you and Neeraj were trying to figure out how to build the bridge.
Right.
And you spend 70% trying to eliminate thing. One could
Yes.
look at that and say that's time lost. But for you, it was time gained
Yes.
because you figured out what you wanted to do in the last 30%.
Right.
So again, this is very well put that a year lost is essentially a year spent gaining perspective.
Yes.
Which will help you in the rest of your career.
And if you think about it, it's not so hard. In everybody's extended family circles, right? Family and friends of families, you will know somebody who's in a technical field, you will know somebody who's in a finance field, somebody who's a CA, somebody who's in a startup. And getting 3-month internships in companies where you know somebody well.
I mean, that is fantastic advice. I'll say so as a parent to a teen who will be going to college in a few years, etc. I think that's great advice. Let me switch to you as CEO. Right? How do you and Neeraj split your roles, and what does your typical week look like?
That has evolved over time. When we started the company, we had dedicated areas where each of us would be fully involved into. Through the middle stages, a
I'm
lot of our
assuming yours
time.
was design and no.
Yeah, so I'll break that down also.
Right.
So in the starting, we had identified what we would do. In the mid phase of the company's growth, we did a lot of things together. Now, as we're growing, we're also now seeing that we have to split our time as well, right? So it's been a
So in the first phase, you optimized around what each of you were interested in, were good at.
yes,
What's like design and like
Yes.
software and systems in Neeraj's case,
Yes.
by and large. In the second phase, both of you decided were doing things together.
that's where finance, fundraising, all
Correct.
of that required us to do a lot
Exactly.
together.
Yeah, you do whatever. It doesn't matter whether you're interested or not. You're founders. You do whatever it takes.
Hiring the team, HR responsibilities, so all
Got it.
that was.
Got it. Now, what's this third phase, and what is the learning, and how are you both approaching your roles in this third phase?
So now, so earlier you're right. Neeraj was a lot on the electronics of the vehicle, the battery systems. I put a lot of my time on the engineering, design, consumer aspects of things. But certain things require like battery tech and user experience related things required us to again work together even then. Then in the middle, a lot required our time because you want you for certain important decisions you want both of us to be taking, or even if we're taking the risk, it's a calculated risk that we're taking without all the variables. So required a lot of time spent together. Today we are in this stage where it is a ton of growth that now we're looking at. Europe expansion, we're looking at scaling up across India. R&D is now going ahead, going berserk with requirements for the upcoming products. We've announced a scooter called the Tesseract. We announced an entry-level motorcycle called the Shockwave. These are also now catering to the wider market spread, right? Where again, to the question that we dismissed, are performance aspects important in all segments? I think it's relative. In each of these segments, we do prioritize performance, but to be ahead of competition in those segments. So yeah, tech and performance is going to be the driving factor. So R&D on the upcoming products is going ahead at full speed.
So how does that lead to
legal
how
fundraising?
Yeah.
All of these are also, massive.
All right, let me switch this question and slightly ask you, like, what three things typically take up 80% of your time in a week? Your time specifically. And I know it might fluctuate. You just came back from Europe,
Yeah.
so during that period, I'm assuming it was just the launches, etc. But in steady state, I know again there is nothing called steady state.
Yeah.
But let's assume steady state.
Today 80% of my time is going in sales, marketing, and R&D of the upcoming products. In that 80%, I think 70% of that 80 would be sales and marketing. R&D,
All right.
of course, is
All right. Like, you've gone from a few people to, you said about 45 when you launched your first product, to about 500 today. And you must have gone through like a sort of like experience, first-hand experience of what is the ideal org structure at each stage, right? Which is, first everybody's just doing something
Right.
and it's very fluid, and then okay, you do this, you form this team. To now you're at 500 people where
Sure.
you cannot. I'm sure there are people in the company whose names you may not like, or if you see them, you may not recognize. So a structure is required.
Right.
What is that? What are some of the learnings? I'm not asking you exactly what's the structure, but if you have some insights there, I'd love that. But what are the learnings that you as a founder have gained through how your organization and team and org structure has grown?
Sure.
What mistakes have you made? What lessons have you learned on how to operate more efficiently with your leadership team, with
Sure.
your skip level team, with the functions, etc.?
So early on, it was every person is a team. That was the early R&D phase, and then each team was maybe 2 or 3 people, and everybody, their background, and um, how to go about structuring things. Um, we also had to get into aspects of finance, HR, admin. A lot of that was self-learned to a certain extent, but we were also very critically aware where it's scaling beyond our abilities. Those are, not just these, but there are several areas in the company where we are not the right people to be driving those things. So we drive it to a certain point when you're crunched for time or resource, and at the right, most of these we are between Neeraj, me, and a few of the folks in the core team. We try to forecast where things are going to scale beyond our immediate control, and that is where you need professional expertise, experience to come in at those levels. So what we also say is, think about it this way: the moment something goes out of comprehension or beyond your ability to control, it is not necessarily a reflection of the fact that why can't you do it, you need to do everything yourself. It is also the fact that that is a point in time where you need to allow more people to come into the system and learn from them as well. And
How do you prevent people from seeing that as a personal failure, especially people who've been around in the company for a while and may have evolved? Like, the example that I'll give is that sometimes people make great 0 to 1 transitions.
Right.
Sometimes people make great 1 to 10 transitions.
Right.
Sometimes people make great 10 to 100 transitions. It's
Right.
not necessary that the same person can always make all 3 transitions.
Right.
Right? How do you help people? Because it doesn't mean that someone who's made 0 to 1 has no other role, or 1 to 10 has no other role, right?
True.
But people do feel that I have to scale with the company, and therefore, like the point that you mentioned, right? It's okay to let somebody else come into the system who may know more and learn from them.
So what usually helps is a constant regrouping in smaller teams and smaller groups. Also, multiple town halls where business context is always given. And the business context maybe 6 years back was to build 3 great prototypes that we can put on the road to test. The business context 2 years back would have been to have a successful launch event. The business context today may be to sell X number of vehicles. What are your margin structures like? In turn, what do we optimize our costs to? So it's a lot more complex. And when you break it down with full transparency, people sort of realize what aspects their abilities are currently capable of. And what we tell people is either you grow deeper into your domain, become a real expert in that domain, or you stay to a threshold depth and broaden your involvement.
Sort of become like a generalist or a
Yeah.
T. The first thing that comes to my mind is like the T-shaped,
Yes.
Professional, right? Where
Yes.
you have a fairly broad but to an extent shallow expertise across a bunch of functions, but you go deep in
Yes.
one thing.
But we need both, right? And even in a startup, even the shallow has a certain threshold depth.
Correct.
If
It's
it is
not-
too shallow,
yeah,
then you
correct.
don't command trust of people that you're working with also. So and that's how we've sort of enabled some people to make some of those choices and then accordingly augment how the teams have to grow. And in the last 2 years, earlier the number of teams was also finite. Now the number of teams are also with sales, operations, production all scaling up.
Got it. How
So-
many, what's the number of people who report directly to you?
I'd say between 10 to 12.
Got it. All right.
But one interesting thing is in the last 2 years is where we built a strong program function. Till then, we were able to coordinate directly with the teams. Now we have a central program function in the company that is taking up the responsibility from idea to launch and launch plus few months before complete handover
Help
happens.
me understand this program function. How did it come about? What does it look like? What does it do?
So program function is basically putting structure to what looks like chaos. And so till date, till about 18 months back, all R&D was towards one objective, one product. Now we have 4 products, one in the market, 3 more coming up. So the same engineer may be working on multiple components for different projects. In terms of aligning hierarchy, timelines, this, that, how do you prioritize what is this week's objective versus this quarter's objective, and breaking it down to a level where you have structure? Because if you're aware of all the problems that you need to solve, you're sort of still at ease. If you lose track of what all problems you need to solve, that's when the human mind sort of spirals into an overwhelming situation, right? So program function helps align.
When did you set this up, the program management function?
Started setting it up about 2 years back.
Got it.
After the launch
what
of-
what was the trigger? What was the preceding 1 year like before you launched the program function? And what led you to saying that, hey, we need this?
What led to it was start of R&D on product 2. Product 1, of course, was close to hitting the market, and even then, once you got a product into market, there's a lot of iterations and optimizations and evolution in the product itself. New software features get launched. As you get more and more data from on-road riding, for instance, you're able to optimize algorithms better. So product 1 also needs to evolve. Product 2 requires more fundamental R&D. Now,
So in some senses, product 1 is going from, let's say, a 1 to 10 journey.
Yeah.
And product 2 is going from a 0 to 1 journey.
Yes.
To loosely, right?
Yeah.
But okay, now what does this do to your organization and structures?
the thing is, when you go from one product to 2 products, the team doesn't double. You need incremental people on R&D, but it's not as simple as just getting a lot of learnings from the phase 1 has also led to phase 2 now being optimized for time, being able to do things smarter and faster. But at the same time, people need structure, and that's where the program team steps in, where every function in the company has a branch from the program team that is centrally aligning things, and if there is any confusion, either helping solve it, prioritize it, or escalate it to the relevant people.
Okay, I'm still not clear on the. I get the program function. I'm still trying to understand. Let's say, okay, I'll give a hypothesis, right, or a counterfactual, which is, let's say today you did not have a program function, right?
Sure.
How would you, in the older system, if you
Sure.
continued with that without this, how do you envision how things would be running today? And would they be running well? Would they be breaking down? And if they're breaking down, where would they be breaking down?
I think things would definitely break down because of how do you build in clarity on what, you look at the topmost objective, break it down into annual goals, quarterly goals, weekly goals, right?
Right.
And these things are not set in stone. As you move forward, you'll encounter roadblocks, or the market reality may change. You may have to revisit some of your assumptions. So all of this information has to be passed on with the same clarity to every person.
Can I approach this from a view of an employee who's a consumer of the program management
Sure.
function, or let's say it's an engineer, or let's say it's a designer,
Sure.
right? What before, let's say, the program management function existed, you had only one. It's very clear. Oh, this is what we need to do.
Right.
What happens when then suddenly there is product 1 and product 2? Are you implying that suddenly now my time is split because one person is asking me about what's happening on this, which is a mature but evolving product? One person is asking, when are we meeting on 0 to 1, etc. And I'm getting these, and both of these people who are making demands for my time have no
Right.
sense of how I'm working. So ultimately everything gets bunched at me and I start to get loose perspective, which is the point that you were
Yes.
mentioning earlier about.
And earlier, the founders, between the two of us and the immediate senior member team, we were able to translate all factors, decisions with clarity to the whole organization. As the company scaled, it hasn't been possible to do that, which is also a key responsibility of the program function. If you pivot after 3 months of working on a certain thing, and if you have to pivot into doing something differently, people don't get frustrated with having to redo something. People get frustrated if the logic is not provided. So as an engineer, if you help me with the outside in perspective also of why we have to do something differently, or why a certain approach may not be the right one based on XYZ feedback from the market or from some other form of analysis.
Got it. Okay, this is a slightly different question, but what are some of the stock responses that your team members might hear from you most commonly in meetings?
Depends if it
What
is
are
a
your favorite
business meeting or a technical meeting.
Yeah,
If
okay,
it-
fine. Let's take both. Let's say it's a business meeting. What are they most likely to hear? Good or bad?
One thing that that I push for is, have we found the optimal solution after discarding all other possibilities? Sometimes you may, due to whatever constraints, you may take what seems like the most obvious way to solve a problem. But have we spent, and if that aspect, it could be a feature, it could be a product, it could be a subcomponent, each of those have cascading consequences by the time it reaches the hands of a consumer. So if it is something serious along those lines, not only have we looked at it from this is the way to solve it, but have we also discarded other ways to go about solving it?
It's interesting. This is the second time context that you're mentioning discarded. You also, in the tinkering example of the bridge building, you said you spend 70% time discarding responses. Most people would have said we spend 70% of time thinking through potential solutions. You said we spend 70% of time discarding approaches that we didn't want to work. And now here again, you're saying, one of the things that you look for as a CEO is that have you discarded enough options?
I suppose each time you discard comes after a certain learning phase.
Yes,
it is
exactly.
not on the surface
Correct.
level.
You've considered and discarded.
Yes.
Is there would I be wrong in assuming that there is a design discipline that comes in here as well in design also?
Definitely.
When you have literally dual degrees in design. When you make something, as a conscious part of designing, you are considering possibilities and discarding it after.
Yes. After certain rationale as to why.
Got it.
Because if something, we are a few billion people. No idea is unique in its way or form. Success is more often defined by ability to execute than the core idea itself. Right? So in that world, if something seems obvious to solve, why haven't other people done it already? So it's important to know the top 2 or 3 ways to do it. There will be rationale as to why you don't find other products in the market that do it.
Right. So what I'm hearing is that you as CEO are perhaps more interested in hearing, tell me what you considered and tell me why you discarded them.
Absolutely.
Rather than telling me what you finally selected.
Absolutely.
Because it's a very useful inversion, because you could give me, like, I can imagine an opposite of this where you come to me and give me a solution. This is the solution. Right. And I believe this is best because A, B, C, D, E.
Right.
And you're saying, fine, I don't want that. Just tell me what are the other solutions you considered and tell me your approach and why you discarded those. Then I'll know whether it's a process of elimination, like you said, of
which helps conviction.
Got it.
And with each time you evaluate, learn, and say, okay, maybe not the most suitable, you're also learning a lot in that process. And the cumulative, you may ultimately come down to solution 1, but it's with a lot more conviction of it working.
God, you said learning, and it is absolutely learning, right? Because the approach 1, where you ask someone and you say, find me a solution, write me on this thing, and they go down the path of a solution, does not lead to learning.
Yeah.
The process of elimination leads to learning, because you must first consider all possibilities, weigh each of their respective pros and cons, and as you eliminate, you are learning in the process. And therefore, when you're left with an answer, not only are you presenting an answer, but you've also learned as a. And I assume that in the organization, that means your colleagues become better at learning.
Yes.
And therefore, what you're really
Yes.
tuning for is that if you become better at learning, we will become better as an organization and in our products.
And the second time you encounter something similar, your decision making is going to be far more compressed because
You have
yes.
done the hard work
Yes,
earlier
yes.
of eliminating options,
Yes.
and there aren't paths that you didn't consider, which you're now, which I'm
Yes.
assuming must be one of the most frustrating things, because in stage 2 or stage 3 of a process, if you have to reconsider options, especially for a hardware company,
Right.
you have to essentially go back to the drawing board
True.
and then retrace that path. So it must be expensive for you as well.
Yeah, so it consumes a little more time in the early stages, but I think it makes the process more robust overall.
Yeah, the closest analogy that I can think of this at a very simplistic level is in exams, when teachers like give a maths problem and they say, I'm not interested in what your final answer is, show me your working.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They want to understand how you got your answer. So
Yeah.
even if your answer is wrong, often they will give you 80% of
Yes.
the marks, because they're like, your approach
Yes.
was right, but you made a silly mistake
Yes.
in the end. As opposed to someone who got the answer right,
Yeah.
but how did you get it? I don't know. So
No,
yeah.
true. Spot on. This is something that I strongly believe in. It could be a tagline for a digital ad that goes out. It could be a decision on how do we enable a consumer to engage region. Do we use switches? Do we use levers? Do we use automated with the braking system? It could be a technical problem. It could be communication. It could be identifying what the consumer wants from a new product. This is something that has helped quite a bit.
What might be some, like, the 3 most common adjectives that your colleagues might use to describe you?
I mean, I don't know.
Come on. You must have enough self-awareness to know what your colleagues think of you.
I mean, something, one word that probably they use for both Neeraj and me is paranoid. In terms of both of us get to very, very deep details in terms of how things are done or ought to be done. It could be the sales experience. I mean, I get equally paranoid with a smudge on the display of a bike if a showroom experience, from a showroom experience perspective, to more deeper levels of issues. So paranoid is definitely one. Also, probably energetic, because people, I mean, I'm available at all points in the day. I also recognize, I mean, there is a certain, while we all have to work hard, there are certain zones where people need some time to recalibrate, be free. So it's not we don't push for crazy productivity, if we were to call it that, through the year. Of course, closer to product launches, etc., there are very, very stressful periods, but we try to manage that.
Got it. What drives you as a person? What motivates you? What drives you? What keeps you energetic? What keeps you going? What makes you think that in the 9th year, time went by so quickly, there's so much more to go?
I think first would be people around me. To me, I mean, till date, it doesn't feel like a corporate. It feels like a group of passionate people doing things. And my source of energy is people that I'm working with closely. So that is one. And the second, of course, is resonance of people with the brand, not necessarily owners, just owners. Even if you don't want to buy, even if you don't own a vehicle, there are still certain aspects of the brand that you feel resonates with you. And I think today, the India that we're living in, the aspirations are very high. The awareness is at a global level. And I think that's something that keeps us excited and keeps us going.
All right. And what part of your job do you wish you didn't have to do?
Fundraising.
How many conversations do you guys have a sense of
that
how many?
Neeraj is going to give you the same response.
How many conversations would you have had over the years?
A few thousands, easily. Across the world with different.
If you had to use an LLM or an AI to summarize all the no's that you got, which I'm assuming would be the majority, because you certainly don't have,
of course,
thousands of investors, right? What would be like, the summarized version of the no's from all the investors over the years look like? top 3 answers?
I think the first would be how how do you expect to build an enterprise that competes with the big four in the country? There is a Hero, TVS, Royal Enfield, Bajaj, who've built scale and brand over few decades, right? So the kind of goals that we've taken on is not just a product, not just a service, not just a B2B product that is used at scale by delivery companies. It's a consumer facing product, which means the number of variables that could go wrong are also higher. So I do understand where some of the early investors or potential investors came from with concerns there. But this
Got
was
it.
a lot of the
All
early
right.
phase.
Answer 1, you're taking on players far too strong, powerful, entrenched for you
Yes.
to succeed. So we will pass.
Yes. Our answer to that hasn't changed. Will they crack tech before we crack distribution? That was our response
Got it.
few years back. It is the same today as well.
All right. Okay. And the other 2 top responses?
The other two, the other would be everybody is doing scooters. Why do you guys start with motorcycles?
All right,
Our
which I
response
get.
is top down approach. We build tech that is for a certain threshold segment. Scaling it downstream is very easy. Whereas everybody else who started at the low end, can they really scale upstream as the market evolves? Today, people we
This
meet.
is also the classic Tesla
Yes,
playbook.
yes, yes.
It started with a really powerful car which was expensive and cost a lot of money and was driven by aficionados.
Yes.
And it then went down the market.
Yes.
Of course, today Tesla has been beaten by BYD and all those other guys. But this was the Tesla model.
True. And the Model S did all the heavy lifting for building powertrain systems, battery systems, cooling systems. That scaled rapidly into Model 3, Model Y, Model X. And
In spite of knowing, I'm amazed that in spite of knowing that this is what Tesla did,
right.
and therefore it is a playbook which is, if not even a new playbook, it is a repeatable playbook. People still use that today. And what would be the third common reason?
But see, the people didn't consider that as a playbook because it is 1 in a million shot
I get
of
that.
success.
So you think that you're going to replicate Tesla? Is it? It's never going to happen.
Yeah,
It's like
exactly. What are the odds of that happening?
Right. You never bottle lightning twice in a bottle. That's okay. Third one.
That was the second. I think these are
Got it.
the primary.
All right. Do you believe in this thing of strong opinions weakly held, or typically do you hold strong opinions about things?
I do, and I'm also open-minded and logical. So if
That
I'm
was my
presented-
next. Yeah. So do you change your mind then?
Yes. But over time, opinions are also strengthened by different facets of life and different sources from where it could be a personal experience, it could be credible sources.
Got it. Can you give me an example of something on which you changed your mind in the context of Ultraviolette or its products or its consumer behavior, etc., over the years?
Since we're on the topic of fundraising, this could be one example where initially the opinion was investors, VCs claim to be risk taking. You walk into an office, you see all these keywords, disruptor, innovator, and all of that. But in reality, how much of it actually translates into investments in risky ventures?
A lot of it is pattern matching and investing in models that have already been proven in some other country, in some other context, etc., and all that.
Yes. So initially, my take on that was, are people not doing justice to what they're supposed to be doing? Whereas if you look at what China has been doing, a few hundreds of billions have gone into hardware startups, and today, very, very different scale in both manufacturing and tech. We used to think a lot of it is just doing what the West is doing, but actually no,
No, it's not.
A lot has been happening.
Yeah, in EVs, in solar, in AI.
Yeah.
I think it's not even in doubt today that China looks to surpass the US, which
Yeah.
is saying a lot. Like in many of these, it already has.
Yeah.
I don't think it's an argument to say that in China, EVs have surpassed I mean, the
Right.
kind of features and cars that they're putting out and the kind of price points. In fact, in China, it's so bad right now that the government is trying to prevent
Right.
price collapse
Yes,
because
yes.
they're too competitive at too low a price.
True.
I mean,
True.
can't imagine that happening. But you're absolutely right. Like, it's the same, it's a criticism that we've heard often, we've covered in our other podcasts as well, that if India is to emerge strongly with its own set of products, what in whatever function, whether it's AI or whether it's EVs or whether it's anything else, right? There needs to be a deeper risk appetite to fund it internally
Yes.
and over a longer term,
Yes.
rather than just, I mean,
Yeah.
let's fund it and, like, are you doubling your valuation in 12
Yeah,
months?
yeah.
I mean, I can't imagine anyone who's going to invest in an ultraviolet. Okay, actually, that's a great question for me, if I may say so myself, right? If a new ultraviolet were to pop up today
Right.
and say, we want to raise money and we're going to take 7 years to release our first prototype, do you think it'll get funded today?
See, today the market is also consolidating. 24 months back, there would have been 10x the number of companies in the EV space. With the government guidelines strengthening and also reality of what consumers are able to discern as quality products is also evolving rapidly. So the market is consolidating. So my question to that, the other ultraviolet would be, if it took us 7 years, it should take you half the time. Because when you're learning based on
Fair.
systems that have been cracked, it ideally takes a lot lesser time, which is what gives us also the conviction, right? If certain brands, for example, people talk about a company like Royal Enfield that has built a brand over 20 years, slow and steady, but my response there is, it's not going to take the next guy, it's not going to take us 20 years. Where was the power of the internet then? Everything was touch and feel and walk into a showroom, word of mouth. Today, a lot of the awareness can happen, like we were discussing earlier. Our AI platforms are going to be driving future opinions and awareness on competition and product differentiators. The internet is doing a lot. Now, this whole world of influencers have evolved out of the need to fast track awareness in a lot of different domains. So something that took 2 decades probably takes half the time now, probably gets compressed even further as the industry progresses.
You said earlier that most of your colleagues would agree that you and Neeraj are paranoid. You specifically, what are you specifically paranoid about? I'm obviously trying to exclude the answer that as a founder you're paranoid that you'll get disrupted, or like you'll run out of funds, or you'll run out of time, etc. Those are all a given. But is there something more specific that you're paranoid about?
A lot of it is also internal. Are we making the best use of time? Are we spending time on doing things that are not necessarily providing the most value at that we need to be providing today? It's those types of things. Attention to detail. When I talk about attention to detail, also goes into what else have we evaluated before deciding that this is the right way forward.
Got it. Let me ask you this question, right? Like, are we spending time on the right things?
Absolutely.
Now, when you started, like, when you were small, in some senses, like, you don't have very ambitious or very clear-cut goals. So a lot of the work that people spend their time on is kind of like, more closer aligned to what their interests are, and everybody's working towards a broader goal, right? But as you mature today, I mean, you're 500 plus people, you have very clear company goals, right? So we must do this, we must do this, we must launch this, we must maintain these or create these margins, etc. So now what you're trying to do is align the work that people do closer to the company's goals so that the company's objectives are met. Has there been some learnings or shift in how to match these two, people's interests and what they're passionate about, and especially in an engineering and product and design company, because it's not necessarily always true that what people are interested in is always aligned with what is most valuable for the company in that point in time. So how do you kind of continuously tweak this to make sure that you're maintaining, yes, you don't want to push people into working on areas which they're absolutely not interested in, but at the same time you also want to make sure that you're working on things that add value to the company.
Right. So From an R&D standpoint, we have like a division called UV Future Labs, which is a group of people. Some of them exclusively working on those projects, and some of them also working on our current platforms, but also contributing certain percentage of time to these projects. So UV Future Labs is an endeavor where we're actively working on, I'd say maybe 10% of the company's bandwidth, perhaps from an R&D standpoint, is going into projects that are experimental from a future potential perspective. One of it, for instance, is we have a platform called the F99 motorcycle platform. It is not commercial right now, but we've created a entire powertrain that is a 400 volt system. And I think the only one of its kind in this part of the world that has done that on a motorcycle, because it's four-wheelers where you go into 400 to 800 volt battery architecture. So for us to be able to extract that kind of power and compact it to a two-wheeler format was important, keeping in mind evolution of use cases for vehicles 3 years, 4 years down the line. So that was a project that slowly, steadily over, say, about 2 years took place. And
Interesting. This is like those technology demonstrator concept car equivalents in this space, where people look at concept cars and say, who's going to buy this? But the concept car is just something that you're working on, which may eventually come in the future, etc.
So the F99 platform may be what people look at as we've hit a bunch of records, the fastest quarter mile, the fastest automobile made in India, a lot of that, but that's more on the glamorous side. But the back end is 2 years went into achieving a battery architecture that is way ahead of where the market is at. Second, another example would be the radar tech. Now we are launching our scooters in early 26. It's coming with radars and cameras and a lot of additional safety. And radars on scooters, it's starting with scooters. What I mean to say is it's going to be a core part of our product platforms. Now we have cars with ADAS systems. What we're bringing to two-wheelers is not intrusive safety mechanism, but an alert-based safety mechanism. Regardless of terrain, weather condition, lighting conditions, you're going to get overtake alerts, blind spot detection, reverse blind spot detection. If I'm in the blind spot of your car, I get an alert, crash alert, collision alert, and a lot more. So stuff like this actually started 3 years back as a side project where somebody put some parts of their time into it. And over time, what started off as a passion project is now reaching commercial implication.
How do you think, when you talk about many of these things, the question that popped into my mind is, nobody's asking for this. Like in general, and I'm generalizing. What I mean is that if you go and ask two-wheeler scooter drivers in India, would you want radar in your scooter? I'm assuming most people will say no.
Sure.
But that's a function of because they haven't seen it.
Yes.
Right? So, but yet so sometimes you work on features which nobody has asked for and it's perhaps ahead of the market. It may flop for all you know, right? How do you assess the usefulness or the risks and the bet on such things where you don't know? Nobody is technically asking. Even if you go and ask people, would you like it? Maybe they'll say yes. But if you say, would you like it enough to pay a premium for it? I'm sure many will say no.
A tangible answer there.
Exactly, right? And you're spending real R&D, real time, etc. So at the end of the day, you do want to be able to extract some premium from launching it. If you're not, then, then what's the point of it? So how do you assess that as a business, that what to work on?
So radar was one example. There would have been multiple projects in the work. One way to look at it would be, I'm sure you can find similar analogies in different industries, but the four-wheeler world has been pushing tech faster than the two-wheeler world, right? And if you look at the evolution of four-wheelers, 10 years back, we wouldn't blink twice if, 10 years back, we wouldn't think too much if airbags weren't a standard part of cars, right? Today, one of the first questions is, how many airbags does this car come with? 10 years back, it would have been, what is the engine capacity? What is my performance numbers? Today, it's transitioned a lot to the experience and safety. So as the industry's evolved and people's affordability has gone up in India as well, premiumness is associated not just in terms of the monetary aspect, but also in terms of the safety related values that come with the vehicle. Now, radars have become standard in mid range and high end cars, and that consumer is now not going to purchase his next vehicle if it doesn't come with that threshold technology. Dash cam, for instance, we've seen world over, now cars have dash cams as a standard fitment.
Integrated, yeah.
Now, what we're noticing in the two-wheeler industry is a lot of people buy GoPros as an alternate because
Right.
now
I've seen many people with those helmets,
Yes.
mounted with GoPros, etc.
yes,
And all that.
and a lot of them are riding with those on because they just want a fallback in case something happens. They want dashcam footage of it. Shouldn't these be standard as part of the vehicle? So we pick up cues from here and there, which we see as trends emerging or as problems that people are trying to solve in hacky ways, and uh, respond to that with.
What are some of the most interesting consumer insights you've got from the bike space in recent times, which you've observed?
When we launched in Europe, the average riding speeds are very different there.
We're sitting in Bangalore, so please don't even tell me.
Yeah. But what happened was optimizing, getting a lot of a few thousands of kilometers of testing in Europe, and that data now coming back to us to optimize our powertrain even more has enabled us to build further efficiency onto the vehicle platforms. So that is something that came to mind recently, right? From the last 1 year of development, that we had something good, we were able to make it even better, provide a little more juice, a little more power because of the testing and results that came in from a different geography riding conditions. In Europe, one very interesting consumer insight, now that you mention it, is the mechanical lock industry is massive in Europe because of theft of vehicles. Right here, theft has now become digital. Right in Europe, those bulky chains that you
Right.
can't get a wire cutter and cut with, every motorcyclist also with a motorcycle purchases 2-3 of those to lock his vehicle to a pole, because not all apartments in central cities in Europe have parking built in, right? So people park in a common parking lot or 2 roads away in an open parking lot. So theft is a massive. So we underestimate theft here because now nobody is really stealing parts of vehicles, wheels, tires, mirrors, etc. Right? It's moved to more ROI on theft, I think, is happening digitally. There it is a massive requirement, and I think when we were able to communicate them that all of the vehicles are connected, every battery pack has its own ability to translate position data, every VCU can transmit data to the cloud, and your vehicle is a secure asset that even if someone was to take it, we can track it down very efficiently. Those were massive. Here you sort of take it for granted as IoT is a big thing here, but in some of those markets,
Who would have thought that theft protection would be a leading concern in Europe, but
Yes.
not so much in India?
yes.
Interesting. All right, last few questions to your personal side. How are you outside of work, if there is such a thing? I understand that typically for founders there isn't. Different than as a professional.
Things I like to do outside of work is I've always tried to keep some time to play sports. I like to stay fit, but to me, fitness doesn't gel with going to a gym. So I've tried different things. I was into kickboxing, then CrossFit.
You're more of
and-
the functional kind.
Yes. And I love sports. Pre-COVID, every day 9 to 10:30 p.m. was a slot locked away. Nobody could disturb me in that slot because I'm done with work by 7 or 8 in most days. And that's when a lot of these turf parks had started coming up around Bangalore.
Right.
So it was twice a week ultimate frisbee, twice football, and once basketball. My routine then was, I think, quite well balanced. Now
How old are you?
I'm 39.
All right.
No, not so balanced today though.
So I mean, that was my next question, right? Like, how has your sports or functional, like, have you noticed any changes in your energy levels, responsiveness levels, competitive levels when you're playing with others? Or have you still not reached that stage yet?
Motivation levels haven't changed,
Right.
but preparation time, of course, has gone up because I'm not
Warm-ups,
as regular.
activation, etc.
Sorry?
I mean, is it by preparation, do you mean like warm-ups, etc. and all that?
No, because I'm not so frequent.
Ah,
So risk of injury is a little more
Right.
now if I go all out on day one. So I'm a little didn't have to worry about these things when you're routinely.
what are you playing these days?
I love basketball, so I still try to play basketball whenever possible.
Got it.
And frisbee.
Interesting. I've got a couple of colleagues as well who are into frisbee. My next question would have been, what's personal time for you? What do weekends look like for you?
Weekends is mostly weekends don't stretch into late nights at work. I'm at work Saturday and Sunday, mostly recruitment. And if any critical escalation has come up in the week that requires a few team members to sit together for a good 2-3 hours to figure it out, then we
Is this virtual sitting together or in office on weekends?
Recruitment is mostly in office, where these are interviews where it's face to face. I mean, the
Right.
first few interviews can happen virtually, but before we close it with the candidate, we like to do a face to face always. So yeah, Saturdays is mostly that. Sundays I try to keep free, but I'm able to coordinate things virtually if there is no escalation on a Sunday.
So on a Sunday that you're able to keep free, what do you do?
Sunday, my wife and I usually we figure out what to do around town, and just relaxing has become premium today, right? So it's not every Sunday that needs to be packed. Even a Sunday spent
Not doing anything is
is
its own reward.
Yes.
All right. On a scale of 1 to 10, how happy are you with life? You can only give a number.
I would say 10 only because I would rather not be doing
You have
anything
to justify
else.
it. 10
Yeah.
is perfectly fine. Sorry, but what was it again? Only because?
I would not rather be doing anything else.
That's a great answer. Which morning, I mean, this is a question I've asked other founders, which morning of the week do you look forward to the most? But you've just said that often you're 7 days a week at Ultraviolette. But I'll still ask that question. Is there a day of the week which is your favorite morning?
Favorite morning, I don't have a day of the week, but if I'm part of a testing session and we're testing a new feature or a new product or something along these lines,
that's
what I'm most excited about. I mean, all of that R&D that's gone in, those are the few moments where you grasp
see it in action and feel it.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Do you read? Do you find the time to read?
I listen to podcasts when I'm in travel, read. Yeah.
But what do you read? Non-fiction, fiction? I mean, do you have any preferences?
Growing up was a lot of fiction, but off late, journeys of different companies and more unorthodox approaches they've taken to solve problems. All of these insights help.
Do you have any recommendations for such an unorthodox journey or founder or company?
I think one would be conversation with founders, where you get the most
Jessica lessons.
undiluted.
Sorry, not Jessica lesson. My bad. That's the Jessica Livingston. Conversations with founders, right? Y Combinator co-founder, right?
Yeah.
That's right. I think it's Jessica Livingston.
I'll
put the link up with in the
what
show
we're
notes
doing
as well.
today also. Like I don't know how many episodes you've recorded with First Principles.
I think it's somewhere between 35 and
Wow.
40.
Okay. So I've listened to a few while we decided to do this, and even before that, I've heard a few. One with Girish Mathrubootham, and then
Right.
the Charge B guys you'd spoken with as well.
Right.
I listened to a few, and
Krish.
yeah, and these stories, right, which give you raw, unfiltered problem-solving case studies is quite inspiring to a lot of people.
I mean, it's inspiring to me. I'll admit that I had a selfish reason also to start First Principle, which is to learn from these conversations, right? So in that sense, my role as a host or a podcaster here is secondary to my role as a learner. Is there anything that you've recently totally geeked out over? any product, any service, etc., which you can't stop telling your friends and colleagues about?
I've been dabbling with a lot of AI since it's the talk of town, trying to figure out where it can drive efficiency, where it takes away from originality. So that's something I've, in the last 1 year, spent a lot of time on. My wife is a UX designer. She spends a lot more time
Oh
than me
wow,
on.
it's like a designer household. I can imagine, like, do you guys, like, I can virtually imagine, like, your home decor and, like, you folks having, like, oh my God, like, this is amazing. Okay, cool.
I think
So what?
it looks a lot better in your mind. We've not had. I mean, we've not set it up. I mean, you're always thinking what more, what else you want to do, and but it helps because
It's interesting that your wife is a UX designer and you come from the slightly more, I think, the hardware,
yeah.
tactile school of design, right? So it's
Right.
an interesting mix. What do you folks have arguments and discussions where it's A versus B? Or is it all converging into some kind of universal design
No,
agreement?
we do have a lot of arguments, debates on, and also spend time on context setting, something that works somewhere that has a certain logic and reason and circumstances around it that enabled it to function. So yeah, we helps that both of us are curious, creative people, and
Got it. If you were...
we like traveling. So we
recommendations, please.
once in say about 4-6 months we try to steal 4-5 days and do
Got it.
something. Not done anything
Either...
super unorthodox.
No, but okay, fine. Which is the most recent one that you did, which you enjoyed?
Recent was a visit to Hoi An and Ho Chi Minh City in Vietnam. Very traditional place, Hoi An, which is more of a village, and we stayed at a homestay, sort of lived with the family, did a lot of things there.
Oh, and great food to boot as well.
Yeah, I'm vegetarian, so
Oh, just you or your wife as well?
she's okay with all forms of food.
Oh,
but
wow. Okay.
for me, it was fried rice for the whole trip.
All right. Okay. If you were locked in a room for 24 hours, my bad, with no internet, what would you do?
I'd probably catch up on sleep and spend a lot of time taking a step back and looking at areas that I haven't had the liberty to do so.
That's a perennial founder thing, right? I hope I can get a free day so that I can refactor and think about the things which I've been putting off.
Yeah.
So even in your free time,
Yeah.
you're actually thinking, okay, I get that.
And this to me should come. I'll welcome the 24 hours because I'm always imagining different scenarios. And for example, if I was running on a treadmill, I would prefer running in an open environment, right? But if I don't have that luxury and I'm on a treadmill, then I visualize I'm, in a race, in a marathon, and then I give myself targets. So wherever things get mundane, I try to put a scenario to it.
All right. That's the designer in you. 6 out of 10 times when you're eating out, what do you end up ordering?
I think we have to cut down on that, but I was spoiled for choice in Bangalore, and now with Swiggy and Zomato, each of those 6 will be 6 different.
Fine. All right. Let's leave 6 out of 10 and say, if you go out, what's your typical top 1 or 2 defaults which you have to overcome in order to find other things? What are your safe
If
or
you are
comfort foods?
Going out in a group, then Bob's Bar down the road is default, or Toit, which is here,
Got it.
because
All right.
both of them have options for everybody in a group. But my personal favorite in Bangalore would be masala dosa. Grown up,
Where, please?
I mean, several now the popular ones.
Please be very careful. I will ask once again, where is the dosa from?
My favorite would be from Malleshwaram.
Thank you.
There is, of course, CTR, which is popular.
Yes.
But there are a couple more which are in the bylanes that are
All right.
amazing.
Thank you. Test passed. And my absolute last question to you. if you had to rate your own performance as a CEO and co-founder on a scale of 1 to 10, how do you rate it?
I mean, one is you have the power of hindsight. For every day that you spend, you can reflect back on. I think maybe about a 7.5.
All right.
I know enough instances where I could have done something differently, but again, that is coming from today's
Obviously,
perspective,
hindsight.
looking back.
Right. Okay.
And yeah, wisdom accumulates with more bad experiences.
Right.
So,
It's ultimately goes back to time. The
Yes.
more time we buy for ourselves, the more opportunity you get to kind of survive, thrive, evolve, etc. Thank you so much for this wonderful conversation. I'm so glad we met finally.
likewise, and I must say this is perhaps the conversation that has made me think and reflect the most.
Oh, and
so-
I'll take that as a compliment.
So I'm
Thank you
also
so
taking
much.
away some
you,
insights
Narayan.
from today's conversation.
And let's keep in touch more frequently than
Sure,
once in
sure,
9
sure.
years. Thank you, Narayan.
Thank you.
This episode was produced by Hari Krishna. Mixing and mastering for the episode was done by the wonderful Rajiv CN, our resident sound engineer. And before you check out, if you've been a long-time listener of the podcast and are glad we're back, do tell the world that by sharing this episode with everyone you think will find it valuable. Okay, this is me, Rohin Dharmakumar, signing off. We'll be back soon with another episode.